genre.
The weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Scott Corelli.
I'm Cassandra Fredrickson.
And I'm Nick Jimenez.
And today we'll be discussing The Girl in the Fireplace, which is the 10th Doctor's fifth story. And an all-time classic, I would say. It's definitely a top 3 for me, this story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of like everything I want in a Doctor Who story is in this. This is the story where, because when I watched the first season of the show, I really liked the Doctor Dances 2-parter. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I liked it so much that I was like, who wrote this? It wasn't until this story that I was like, I need to know who wrote that episode. And then I think to a certain extent, I assumed it was Russell T Davies. And when I found out it was someone called Stephen Moffat, I was like, did they work on the show last season? And then I found out it was that episode. And I was like, oh. And then I think it was right after this, I hunted down Coupling and watched that. And then sort of became like a big Stephen Moffat fan for a long time until, I sort of fell out of love with him in season 6 of Doctor Who.
Sure. Like your dad. Yeah. Like our dads.
Along with everyone else. But The Girl in the Fireplace.
Go set a Watchman.
The Girl in the Fireplace. This story basically came about because Russell T Davies, who was responsible for Casanova, the 3-part serial that David Tennant came from, before he was cast as the 10th Doctor.
That's where he came from, guys.
Yeah, that's where he came from. That's why he was cast as the Doctor. Because he'd worked with
someone asked where David Tennant's come from.
Yep.
You can say.
Yeah. While doing his research for Casanova, Davies sort of became enraptured with this historical figure called Madame de Pompadour, and was really interested in her whole deal, everything that she did. And so he wanted an episode about Madame de Pompadour in season 2, and he also wanted it to involve the Turk, which was a clockwork man invented by Wolfgang von Kempelen of Vienna. And so he was like, I really want these things. And he was like, he asked Stephen Moffat, he was like, hey, so I want a story about Madame de Pompadour and a clockwork robot. Is that something you'd be interested in writing? And he was like, yeah, sure. So he took it and he turned in a story, and basically he turned in Girl in the Fireplace, and Russell T Davies was just like blown away because he was like, this is so much more than what I asked for. Like, he thought he was going to get a pseudo historical episode of just like an adventure of like, with clockwork monsters and the Madame de Pompadour in
prepare ye for a romp.
Yeah. In 18th century France. Like, that's all he kind of thought it was going to be. And then he ended up getting The Girl in the Fireplace, which, prior to being called The Girl in the Fireplace, was called Every Tick of My Heart.
Boy.
Not so good.
Yeah. Reinette and the Lonely Angel.
What? No. These are all like the same kind of bad, too.
Loose Connection.
See, that sounds like that's a different kind of bad.
Yeah.
That's like a 90s like rom-com bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then eventually settling on The Girl in the Fireplace.
Which is lovely and like a fairy tale and fits.
Well, and there's a lot of what Stephen Moffat would become known for as showrunner.
Yes.
In this story. You know, not the least of which is Madame de Pompadour, the original Girl Who Waited. So there's that.
Also, you know, like when they're describing, you know, all of the different, you know, what a Renaissance woman, I guess Madame de Pompadour was. You know, she was a courtesan, she was an actress, she was a this, that. It kind of felt like like a proto precursor to River Song in a way.
Yeah, a little bit. Sure. It definitely shows you the kind of women that Moffat was interested in writing, which became sort of a trope that was like, you know, celebrated in the beginning. And then as we figured out that like those were literally the only kinds of women that he wrote, we all started going,
well, hold on, buddy.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Did you know that women are humans?
Yeah. So a couple of things.
Becoming all kinds.
A couple of things that didn't make it into the final version of Girl in the Fireplace. A couple of elements that will sound very familiar. The first of which is that the Doctor, and when the Doctor goes through the fireplace, it's randomized time. So while Reinette is known as the Doctor in order, the Doctor is meeting Reinette out of order. So that was the first thing that they cut, because they were like, well, that's just too confusing for a single episode. So they made it in order, which is obviously something that he returned to with the aforementioned River Song. And then also the mind meld that the Doctor does with Reinette is actually what initially attracts the Clockwork Robots to Reinette. Because they're like, oh, her brain is special because it was melded with the Doctor. And then rather than that, they cut that out because it took too much explanation. So instead they just didn't explain it, and then and added the gag at the end of the episode that the ship was called the Madame de Pompadour. To just sort of explain it away, like, aha, robots are dumb. Because they are, which is kind of the moral of this story, is that robots are stupid.
You stupid robots.
You stupid clockwork robots. So that's about it. That's about it. The last thing that I wanted to, the final thing that I wanted to give credit to is, like, I have always loved the line that everybody has nightmares, even monsters. What do monsters have nightmares about? Me? I love that line. And I was like, that is one of the best lines that Moffat ever wrote. And turns out Moffat didn't write that line. It's actually cribbed from a Paul Cornell novel, Love and War. So
nice.
Paul Cornell actually wrote that line, not Moffat. So that's
give it up.
Yeah, give it up for Paul Cornell.
Also a guy who needs to come back and write more Doctor Who. True.
Very true. That's it. That's all there is to it. I mean, it's I love this story. I think it's a masterpiece. I really do. As far as Doctor Who is concerned, again, my favorite is still and probably always going to be Silence in the Library. But man, this story's good. This is real good. Much better. Blink tends to be the one that everyone sort of touts as like the greatest Doctor Who story ever. But like, no. It's not. It's fine, and it's clever, and it's a fun watch. But it's not. It's just a better version of Love and Monsters, essentially. Because the Doctor's barely in it, you know?
Right.
It's the best thing to show people who don't know anything about Doctor Who.
That's true.
Because it is such a great self-contained piece of original sci-fi.
That's true.
And I think that has a lot of crossover value.
We'll talk about this whenever we get to Blink, but I actually fundamentally disagree with showing people Blink for the first, their introduction is for Doctor Who, because the Doctor isn't in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Blink is good, but it's overrated.
It's very accessible. It's
accessible.
Yeah, it's accessible. Like, you could show that to anyone who's never seen Doctor Who. It's not a good example of Doctor Who, but you can show it to anyone.
So someone could watch one episode of Blink and think like, I love this, and then maybe watch a couple more and be like, wait, I don't know if I'm feeling
right.
this.
I mean, if you go from Blink to Rose, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't
Pizza.
This isn't this. That garbage can just ate that guy. Anyway,
so much farting.
The 11th Hour is the episode I would show people.
Yeah.
Either that or Vincent and the
yeah.
Doctor. I just rewatched Vincent and the Doctor for another podcast, and like I would watch
11th Doctor. Yeah, sorry.
I would show that or 11th Hour to people who had never seen Doctor Who instead of Blink. Like Blink comes later. Blink is special.
Yeah. But yes, yeah. Blink is special. 11th Hour is such a great like Doctor Who 101.
Yep.
Because it feels like a little summer blockbuster. It's so like smart and fast.
And you know what? I think this one works that way too, in the same way. I think you can show this as a really good stepping on point because Mickey is new to all of this in this story. So it works for that, I think.
Yeah. That's true.
There's a lot of explaining of what they do, and there's so many classic moments in this story.
Yeah.
I mean, getting right into it, the line that opens this, we're like, do you smell that? And Mickey's like, Sunday roast, definitely. I'm like, oh no, that's human body parts cooking in the spaceship.
Calm down, Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, it smells delicious, Doctor.
I'm like, oh no, because they never really come back to it.
No, they do.
Sunday.
They do?
Sunday
Okay.
Yes.
roast, for sure.
Okay.
Because he was just like, because the
it's-
doctor later on, the doctor's like, what did you guys say that the spaceship smelled like? And Rose is just like, someone cooking, and like her face is just like horrified.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that Sunday roast line is good. There's a lot of just really good setup and payoff in this story that I just love. And I love the flash forward at the beginning being a flashback because it's like, it doesn't feel like a flash forward because everything's out of time. So it's showing you like the end of the Madame de Pompadour story, but then it's like, 30 million years later or whatever it says at the beginning. Which is just, it's really good. I like that. And you know what, like overall, I love Moffat's doctors, and the way that he writes for them, especially early on in the case of the 11th Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think any doctor got his sensibility as much as Tennant. Like Tennant and Moffat, when they teamed up in like their, 3 stories that they worked together on, were just so perfect. I think there's so much of this, like, it always seemed like Tennant just knew exactly when to throw away certain jokes to make them work even better.
Yeah, it really is that special relationship that an actor can have with a writer, where he has the ability to make certain words just really sing, and he gets the humor of it, but then he knows when to play it straight or sad,
Right.
Saucy.
Well, because like there's that line where Mickey's like, "What's a horse doing on a spaceship?" And Tennant's just like, "What is 18th century France doing on a spaceship? Mickey, have some perspective." Which is
and he knows that right level where it's like just
but just
straight enough.
Just at the end of it, as he's saying it, he's already being distracted by something else. So like his voice is sort of trailing off toward the end of it.
Yeah, totally. And that's I think one of the gifts of David Tennant as an actor, and why this is such a perfect role for him, is you can see him think.
Yes.
He really lets you watch him think. I think that's true in Broadchurch. I think that's true in a lot of his stuff. And with a character like the Doctor, where thinking is his superpower. It's I remember being so energized watching him be the Doctor every week.
Like he knows exactly when to go big and heroic in a Moffat script and when to be sort of self-deprecating in his performance. Whereas like, I don't think Matt Smith always knew that balance.
Yeah. I have a lot of opinions about 10 and 11 that I have really changed while watching these 2 episodes. Where it's really interesting because, like, I give, and I don't want to talk too much about 11, but 10 is really so swashbuckling in this episode and so confident to the point of arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see 11, because, you know, I put so much on that in 11. I think of 11 as being this swaggy, like, I'm the coolest guy in the room. And I think it does get there around like season 7, maybe even a little earlier. But maybe it's just that Tennant wears it better. But like he's kind of almost like he's kind of obnoxious almost a little bit in this one sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, or like, you know, you kind of feel for Madame de Pompadour's spurned boyfriends for being like, who's this coming in through a window on a horse?
Yeah. Well, I
Lord
love
of Time.
I love that because, I mean, the thing about Tenet, right? And this is the difference. Whereas, like, it seems like 11, whenever he would get sort of pompous, he would stay that way and just smugly be like, yeah, no, I do deserve to be this pompous. Whereas 10 will do something like, I'm going to put you in your place, where, you know, he says like, you know, I'm the king of England, or I'm the king of France. And he's like, I'm the Lord of Time, like whatever. And then right after that, he'll go he'll be back in the ship next to Mickey, and Mickey will be like, who does this guy think he is? And he's like, the king of France. He's both like, he just doesn't like people feeling like they're uppity. So he just puts people in their place all the time. Right. And it's not coming from necessarily a place of ego. It's just coming from like, you need to learn some perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas 11 is fully ego place. It feels
like I think about,
that's interesting that you say that. 'Cause like up until this point in our coverage of 10, I know that we've remarked on like how smug he can be, especially with like Rose, like how cliquey they are. So is it like a different kind of overconfidence, or?
I think so. 'Cause I think there's something about this story in this season. 'Cause like in the next story that we'll talk about this season, I think it's the Cybermen 2-parter is what comes up after this. It's right back into like smug, gross Doctor with Rose stuff that I don't like. But
it's almost.
Sorry. I was gonna say this one just feels a little outside of that for whatever reason. Like it was almost like Moffat wasn't willing to play along, I guess, and wrote
I
him
think
a little differently.
I think this episode is. It's funny. Like I think about that the scene where the Doctor takes off the android's wig and sees the clockwork mechanisms and workings inside of it, and he is genuinely awed and like, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, but I am going to still break you apart if I have to. And it disappears after that, and I'm like, that's such a cool way to show the Doctor's authority, which is like, I can admit that you are a creature of beauty, and I'm not going to say you're an ugly hunk of bolts or anything, but I have a job to do.
Right. Yeah. And like, you know, the thing with the King of France, it's like, I respect the fact that you're the King of France, but also don't get too uppity. Like, don't throw that on me. I'll put you in your place. But I do respect that you're the King of France. And I like that. I like that sort of combination of like, he just doesn't like people. The thing I like about him in this story is that he just doesn't like people having too much of an ego. Whereas later, it's really just about his ego.
It's really like the difference between just a professor who's like a little bit rebellious and a little bit naughty, and like a schoolboy that just owns the grounds and is just like having the time of his life and has no respect for anybody.
Right.
Yeah, I really, this episode really did, like Scott, it really made an impact on me, and it was the episode that I think vaulted Doctor Who from like show that I like to thing that I love, up there with like Harry Potter and The Simpsons and Buffy. And it's interesting watching it now because like those little clockwork alien androids, it's lovely and it's beautiful and it's musical, but then it kind of, I don't know what it's doing. And it is like this little self-contained story, and you get this little glimpse of the Doctor's pathos and his pain, but you never really dig into it. And like Madam, unfortunately, quite a few of Moffat's characters. I think Madame de Pompadour is on the surface so great and so entertaining and such a great actress, but like, I don't know. I always remember like showing this episode to a really, really good friend of mine to be like, hey, watch this new thing called Doctor Who. This is freaking amazing. And like, she wasn't, she was like, yeah, that was cool. But she had no desire to keep going after that. And so I don't know. Watching this episode, I was mindful of that memory.
Wonder what she didn't connect to. I don't know.
I think it's just the Moffat syndrome of it all. Like he's enamored with these women who are extraordinary, but he struggles to like showcase,
go deeper.
Yeah, like showcase how extraordinary they are. Like they talk about her in like her accomplishments, but we don't actually see her do anything.
Oh, see, but,
yeah, it's like,
but see, for me, that scene where she's like her poise in the face of death when she's just staring down the Clockwork Man and being like, "You think I'm scared of you?"
Friends.
Like she's on her knees and like about to get her head chopped off, and she's like, "I'm not afraid of you." And like that was for me. That was the thing that sold me on her character. Was that moment?
Yeah, and it's a testament to that. I'm looking up her name right now.
Oh, the actress is awesome.
Yeah,
great.
Sophia Myles.
And she's in Transformers 4, and it bummed me out. But I'm glad that she's working.
Yeah, Sophia Myles. She and David Tennant dated for a while after this.
Oh,
yeah, before she moved to Los Angeles because she got cast in that vampire show on CBS.
They do have a lot of really good chemistry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a lot of why. I mean, there's a reason I love this, and I think there's so many great moments. I mean, I remember thinking, I don't really relate to, as a kid, I didn't ever really want to be a lot of the dudes that I saw on TV or movies. Like I don't have a lot of memories of like, oh, I want to be that guy, I want to be like that guy. But I do definitely remember being in high school and just thinking David Tennant was like the coolest guy you could ever be.
Oh yeah.
And the 10th Doctor being like the coolest. And granted, I was a teenage boy, but I think there's worse, I don't know, dudes to be like think are cool,
Yeah. I was in my early 20s and I wanted to be David Tennant.
I mean, like David Tennant is still like my doctor with like a capital M. So it I don't know, his performance and versatility, and like also he's hot as hell. Like that doesn't hurt.
when he invents the banana daiquiri 2 centuries early.
When he comes in with his like tie around his head and those stupid glasses, I'm just like, yep, he had a good time.
I love the banana daiquiri thing too, because it just like, I like that Moffat has these things that he just has the Doctor talk about or say like multiple times, because it's something that he's like, no, the Doctor truly believes that bananas are good. And so every time I write the Doctor, I'm going to have him mention something about how good bananas are.
Yeah, and just little moments like no, you can't keep the horse, I let you keep Mickey. Just like hearing like favorite songs again.
Yeah,
and it's always the weird Camilla joke.
I mean, it's only weird because we don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's very true. That's deeply true. I also. There's another part that I'm always like, oh, it's a little awkward.
Before somebody on the Facebook group says explains to us what the Camilla joke is, I know, but also we weren't like listening to it like every day. Like
it doesn't have the cultural renaissance,
right?
To us,
right? Exactly. We know I understood the joke, but it's not as I think it just seems out of place to us because we're like, who cares about that? Oh, right, British people. Yeah.
Mickey's NES Know Your Roots shirt makes me deeply nostalgic. I'm just like, God, yeah, those used to be everything.
That's great. What are your overall thoughts?
Oh, the costuming in this
it doesn't seem like it's one of your
gorgeous,
favorites.
by the way. Like I always love when the BBC does historical, and especially Doctor Who, because they just knock it out of the park every time. It's so pretty. So pretty.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've never ever been to England, so I've never been to any of like whatever tour or guide Doctor Who shows that they have, but I would love to see some of those clockwork monsters.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Those are really pretty too.
Yeah, they closed the Doctor Who experience, which is a huge bummer. I hope that they sort of like pack it up and take it on tour, because I'd like to, like, I don't know, travel to another, like, an American city at some point, maybe, hopefully, like have it like set up in a museum exhibit or something.
Instead
I would love
of like
to see all of it.
freaking Cardiff or whatever, wherever it was.
Yeah, well, and now it just closed entirely. So,
right.
you know, you're not doing anything else with it. Like, throw it in a traveling exhibit. That'd be nice.
Yeah, maybe if the Chibnall Whittaker era has like a spike in popularity, maybe they'll like tour it.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be so great. Because I would love to see one of those clockwork monsters, because they are beautiful. Like, that's the thing. It doesn't feel disingenuous when the Doctor is talking about how beautiful they are. I'm like, yeah, looks beautiful. Look at all those gears. Ugh.
They're so shiny.
Yeah.
And I think this episode just made a big impact on what I think Doctor Who should be. Like, I think it's no accident. I think this does affect watching this when I did, and it affecting my love of the show. I do see the Doctor, like when Madame de Pompadour is like, oh my God, when they have that mind meld, and she's like, God, you were such a lonely kid. You're so, like, you had no one. Like, oh yeah, like that's who he is to me still, is like a little Time Lord boy that like really never fit in. So he had to steal a TARDIS. Like, I like that character.
And that's another thing that Moffat comes back to in Capaldi's era.
Right.
With Listen. If the little boy in the barn is the Doctor.
Right. That's very true. Oh man. It's real good. It's real good. I love this story so much. It's up there with, one of my favorite episodes of anything, really. It's just, man, it's good. I could watch this anytime.
Yeah, it's definitely on my mixtape.
Yeah.
On my Doctor Who mixtape.
Well, and not just on my Doctor Who mixtape. I just mean like on like any show. Like,
in my mind, sorry, in my head, I pictured having a mixtape for every like show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm thinking of like, if I made a mixtape of like my favorite episodes of stuff, like it would be, like this would be up there with like my favorite episodes of Buffy and stuff like that. Like all of those like sort of episodes that stick out of your memory,
The Constant would be on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Man.
It's definitely up there.
Both love stories.
Watching this out of context, I was surprised at how like it affected me. Because I guess it's been a while since we were in like Amy Pond land, where he kind of like recycled this. So having seen that and seeing it play out, and then like revisiting this, like it is deeply affecting, and it's like sweepingly romantic in a way that was kind of surprising. Like I didn't remember it being that way. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah,
man,
it's and it's anyway, I've lost my thoughts.
Everything about this sort of OG Girl Who Waited is it's all sort of a mini version of Amy Pond's arc in a lot of ways, because it is a it's a woman who is special, I guess. I don't know how you would describe. I guess their personalities are slightly different in that. But maybe that has more to do with.
This is where we get to the hey Moffat, maybe dig a little deeper.
Yeah. Maybe this has more to do with probably the eras that they're from more than anything else. But regardless, the arc of the two characters being like, oh, it's the Doctor involved in a pseudo love triangle, and
right.
And he visited her as a child, and then she sees him again and thought he was a invisible friend, but then he's not. He's a real person, and she kind of falls for him, and then she dies and writes him a letter to be like everything's okay.
Yeah, the kind of like the weird, like the Doctor as imaginary friend / first crush.
Right.
Yeah, and I just really like, I don't know, the Doctor running in and out of Sophia Mile of Reinette's life Sophia Myles really nails like the melancholy of that, because every time we see her, significant time has passed and she is getting older and her life is ending, and she really nails like why that's sad. And I think David Tennant nails why that, and that's kind of how real life feels sometimes. As you get older, you walk through a door and like months have passed, you know?
Also, I mean, dude, if you want to bring her along, like, you knew that there was a time problem with the fireplace. Like, just, I don't know, prop it open, stick a log in there or something. Come on.
Yeah, he's not, his head's not on straight.
Yeah.
During a lot of this.
Anyway. Yeah.
Oh, son of a bitch! On Wikipedia, the Clockwork Droids were in fact a part of the Doctor Who experience for a time.
Nice. Well, for a time, but the Doctor Who experience is no more.
Dun dun dun.
Hashtag Clockpunk.
Clockpunk. That should be a thing.
Isn't it?
I bet it is.
Clockpunk?
Yeah.
I guess it would
It's
just
like
be
a subgenre of
like
like steampunk, right?
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so.
All right. Fair enough. I didn't know that there were subgenres of steampunk. I thought steampunk was itself a subgenre. So that's...
Yeah.
Well, not to say son of a bitch twice in one episode, but there is a Wikipedia page just about cyberpunk derivatives.
Yeah. Good Lord.
We have biopunk, we have nanopunk, we have clockpunk, we have atom punk, we have elf punk, which I guess is like, you know, like urban fantasy,
Like
I guess.
Shadowrun?
Wow.
Like an orc with a robot arm.
Oh,
Nice.
boy. Maybe we don't need to label everything. Maybe we can just let stories be stories. Anyway. Right.
Let stories be stories.
Yeah. So anyway, Girl in the Fireplace, this one's an all-time classic for me. So I
love it a lot.
quite liked revisiting it.
And I'm excited to keep it going. I feel like we're almost kind of in the same era, just in a different country next week.
Mm-hmm. True. Very true. So next time we're going to be talking about the Vampires of Venice.